tonight, join Trista and I as we talk about an unbelievable murder scene that happened early in the 1900s where 8 people were taken out in a house without any fight, any struggle, any disturbance of any kind. How can that happen? Join us and find out.
You're okay, ma'am. You're safe now. Can you look at me?
They're still out there.
We'll take care of it. Right now, we just need to get you warm.
Dispatch, victim located. We're heading back to the vehicle.
Easy does it. Lean on me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Creme de la Cringe.
Hi, guys.
We have a really, it's just a horrific murder story to talk about today. And it's one that a lot of you have heard about from the paranormal side, and we'll talk about that. I'm not even going to give you the name of where this takes place. Well, maybe in the first 5 minutes you'll hear about it, but because then everybody will be like, we're not going to listen. When I'm doing the research for this, we use newspapers.com like to do all the research. That is not an advertisement, by the way. I just pay for it. It's really good. It's amazing what you can find.
It really is cool.
It is so cool.
It is so cool.
In there for like werewolves and vampires and all that. And so every once a week I get updates with new articles and then I click.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's fun. But anyway, so this happened in June 10th, 1912. So think about 1912. We're so modern, right? But there's still horses and wagons. The streets are still muddy. They're not paved. Really early automobiles are out there. Okay. Like what Model A's, all those kind of things.
Was that the ones where you had to wind up the front?
Trains are the primary mode for long distance because it's still horse and buggy time. So if you really wanted to go across most of the United States, you would take the train and it would take you weeks to go across the US. It would take you months if you were in a horse and buggy. So the global empires of Britain and Russia and Germany dominated the map, and it's just 2 years before the outbreak of World War I. There's your time frame. So 1912. This
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think about.
I know. News traveled in morning newspapers. Everybody got the newspaper. Everybody got the newspaper and telegrams. And nobody locked their door. I mean, you just didn't, unless you were in a really thriving metropolis where there was more crime rate. You lived in a small town, nobody locked their door. So, also what happened on this date, 1912, was the murders of an entire family and 2 guests in a house. And this crime scene absolutely baffles me, and it baffled the police too, because I can't figure out how it was done. So Mr. and Mrs. Moore, their 4 young children and 2 women visitors to the home were all killed on the same evening in this house, and nobody heard a thing. Now, when I show you a picture of this house, there's a house literally 20 feet away. That was there at the time. I mean, these homes are all the same age. So it's not like it was in the middle of the farm and then everybody built around it as things were sold off. This is in town. So
and no one heard anything.
No one heard anything. Their heads were crushed with an axe, and the axe was left behind in one of the rooms.
What is with the axe thing back in the early 1900s?
Yep. So here we go. I'm going to share this screen so now you'll know what we're talking about. There's the house. And it is the Villisca Axe Murder House, which is still there, still has tours. You can spend the night in it. And look at the proximity of the house right next door. Literally right next door.
And okay, let's think about this. 1912. It was not insulated like it is now. Those windows were probably paper thin.
Oh yeah, they're single.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. It didn't have the chicken wire plaster yet, so
Nope, this is a board and batten house.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So single pane windows, it still looks like when you look at it here, let me share the screen again. It kind of still looks like the original windows. Look at that. Single pane, old wooden frame windows.
Yeah.
These windows next door have been modernized. But
yeah, they have those ones. It looks like they kept almost everything original that they could.
Yeah, in this house, absolutely. Look at the fish scale on the peaks, which is what I want to do with my house when I get it recited. I love the fish scale. It's a really cute house. It has, the cute little ads that they did here on the porch with the little smoke.
I love the porch.
I know. It's a darling house. Yeah, but it is a murder house. So let me get my notes back up here. Okay. So it's a real life horror scene. The 4 children ranged from 6 to 11 years old. Identification was nearly impossible to make since their faces were gone on all of the victims. The only clue left at the scene was the axe. The Moore family was really well known in the community, and they were really well loved. All 8 in the household were slain in the middle of the night. The axe used in the murders, like I said, was found upstairs in the room where the 2 women guests were staying. They were relatives of each other, and they were well known to the Moore family, and they had come over for the evening and, stay the night and go home. Yeah, well, there was going to be 3 guests, and one of them couldn't make it, thankfully for that person. The axe, like I said, was found upstairs in one of the rooms. It was said to have been taken from the woodshed behind the house. And all of the victims were so badly battered that they were completely unrecognizable. And the only way that the police knew who they were, because this was a small town and everybody went to church together, and this was their
Everyone
house.
knows everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mr. and Mrs. Moore and the 4 children were found on the main floor of the home. So the upstairs, so there's rooms on the main floor of the house, and then upstairs there were 2 guest rooms. And the 2 ladies were staying in one guest room with a big bed, and all of the doors and the windows were locked except for their bedroom upstairs, because it was probably warmer. It's June and it's hot and humid, and they probably opened that window for evening air. There's no air conditioning back then. So it took some time for the police to actually ID everybody, even though they knew it was the Moores. They didn't know who the guests were, so that took some time. The position of the bodies indicate there was absolutely no struggle from any of the 8 victims. That's what I can't piece together. There was 0 struggle. Mr. and Mrs. Moore were found in one bed, their bed, and the bedding had not been disturbed in the least at all. All 4 children were also laid in their beds in natural positions, and if it had not been for their horrific injuries, they would have looked asleep. That's what's so strange about this whole case. The 2 women upstairs, later identified as the Spillinger girls, occupied the same bed upstairs and were laying in a natural position. One sister had one arm thrown out in such a manner as to indicate that she had been awakened before being attacked, but she only had a slight cut on her arm. That was the only sign of a struggle. How does one person kill all 8 people without waking anybody up?
Well, I mean, do you remember the Idaho case?
Yes, but we'll get into some of that here. There was a lighted lamp in the room occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Moore, and it was in the center of the room on the floor, not on the bedstand.
Why? That's weird.
I know. That's weird, right? Local officers said there was blood found on the front door, and they believed it was left by the person or persons who committed the crime. They were originally going, well, there had to be 2 or more. I mean, how could you kill everybody and not disturb anybody? There was no sign of a struggle anywhere. The only thing out of place was the lamp in their bedroom on their floor. Blood was found on the door, the doorknob, and on the stairs. Bloody fingerprints were also found, and they did take, they lift fingerprints. They had that technology then, so they had taken fingerprints, but they didn't have anybody to match it to. The window blinds in the house were closed so that no one could see in the home. The doors were all locked, as were all the windows, except for those 2 windows upstairs. So you want to see the house again. There was 2 windows upstairs, and that open. These, well, it looks like all 3. Oh, this one and maybe on the other side.
But my question is, like, how would they get in?
Well, exactly. There was nothing at the crime scene to indicate how they got up there, unless they climbed from the banister up here, up. But how would they get over here? I don't get it.
Yeah.
And there was not, from all of my reading of the newspapers, there was not any indication that there was a ladder found anywhere. The window blinds, like I said, they were all closed. Police believed the murderer climbed up to those windows to access the home, as I just thought, like go up the porch. But then you have to be kind of a Spider-Man to hang off that steep pitched roof and try to get in the window.
And once again, it's not severely insulated, so you would think someone would hear them.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's another theory later on. The crime scene was found around 9 a.m. the next morning when a man who was employed by Mr. Moore came to the house to find out why Mr. Moore had not opened his business. He saw the blood and called for the police. He saw the blood on the door and the porch. And then within minutes, the whole town was alerted to the crime scene because there's no secrets in a little town, especially when the cops are come rolling up. Mr. Moore had a farming implement business and was really well regarded in the area. And, this is, I think, is this Iowa? The scale? I can't remember. I think it's Iowa. So farming implement business is a big deal back there. And then they were really, really active in the Presbyterian church, and everyone spoke really high of the entire family. They loved the kids. There was not really anything negative about this whole family. Mr. Moore was 45 years old. Mrs. Moore was a little bit younger, but the paper didn't say what her age was. And they had a lot of relatives in the area, big family. There was no motive for the crime. There was no falling out in the business. Bloodhounds were gathered, and they started a search around the house. Oh, yeah, it's Iowa. Members of the Iowa National Guard, as well as armed citizens, scoured the countryside to look for anything or anyone that looked suspicious. They had over 5,000 people search the town. And
they had bloodhounds.
And bloodhounds. Well, you're going to hear something interesting in a little bit about what happened with the bloodhounds. The coroner's inquest was the very next day, June 11th. Ross, Ben, and Harry Moore, they were all brothers to Joseph, Mr. Moore, who was slain. They all testified to the coroner's inquest. And they said they didn't know anybody who would have hated their brother so much as to murder him, let alone his wife and his kids. Like, I can see having a fallen out with him over a transaction, but taking out a whole family, who would do that?
Yeah.
The funeral was like staggering for this community size. At the time, it was in postage stamp. It's still not that big. The entire town, absolute entire town, shut down for the funeral because they needed so many pallbearers. Think about it.
Okay, now that kind of shows you how small
the town is.
Yeah.
Because there's 6 per casket, and there's 8 caskets to carry.
Jeez.
And yeah, so there's all the pallbearers. Sheriffs from nearby counties came in to help direct traffic with and do crowd control because newspaper people and other towns, everybody just poured into this little town at the funeral. And plus, there's a lot of law enforcement presence at a funeral like this just to watch people. Because usually they come back to the crime. They want to see.
Yes.
See their handyman work. Yeah. So local police were really convinced that there was only one perpetrator. They're thinking, how can 2 people get into the house? So there's more thoughts on this. Edward Selly, he was a clerk employed by Mr. Moore, Joseph Moore, said that Mr. Moore did fear someone. There was one person that Mr. Moore had confided in him that he was afraid of. And it was a guy named Sam Moyer, who was his brother-in-law. So this guy, Sam, married either his wife's sister or his sister. Let's see. It just said brother-in-law. So Sam Moyer was his brother-in-law, and he caused him problems all the time. And Edward feared Moyer was the culprit of the crime. And Joseph had said to Edward, he had stated more than one time that he feared and believed that he would one day be murdered by Sam. And he actually did make similar statements to one of his brothers, but they kind of, they didn't put any stock to it. Like,
yeah,
no, he's not going to do anything. You knock it off. So police were looking for Moyer by the date of the funeral, but he couldn't be found. And in all of my research and all of the articles, he was never found. Like, he took off. And there's more to that. So he's gone. So that right there, you're like, he took off. I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy. There was also an escaped convict from a mental asylum that people feared could be the murderer. However, the head of the asylum said that the man who escaped had not been under restraint for some time, and he was only a couple of weeks away from being released anyway, and he was certain that this escaped guy was not the culprit, because whatever mental issues he was having to cause him to be imprisoned in the asylum, he had beaten, like he'd gotten through it all, and he came out the other side kind of a changed guy, and he was going to be released. And he's like, he's not the guy. I'm telling you, he's not the guy. Then a clairvoyant was brought in on the case, and I love this. The newspaper wrote, and this is a quote, "The woman's talents for psychic reading has proven true so often in the community in the past that inhabitants have a wholesome respect for her prophecies. She sent word to Ross Moore before the arrival of the bloodhounds that she had information. She said that when the dogs came, they would take a scent and would go south through town to the slaughterhouse, and there would be found some discarded clothing. And from that, the dogs would then trace the murderer in the same direction to the river, but the scent would be lost. The dogs did exactly that a few hours later. At the edge of the river, they lost the scent."
Wow.
Yes, footprints were seen along the river's edge, but the person was never found. The clairvoyant also said that the man who killed the family did so from spite. She said that within a month he would give himself up. But I'm going to let you in on a little tidbit. That never happened. So what's interesting to me is I am a bloodhound owner, and I've done tracking with my bloodhounds, and I've done recovery with one of my hounds, and they don't lose scent in water. The only way they'll lose scent in water, you'll see it in the movies. The prisoner goes up and down the creek and up and down the creek and up and down the creek, and then he takes off. The only way they're going to lose scent in water is if they get into a vessel. So if the guy had a canoe and then he got into the canoe and he went down the river, they're going to lose the scent when he gets into the vessel and leaves. But if he's running through water or crossing streams, they're going to follow the scent. They're not going to lose the scent.
That makes sense. So because that scent's still going to travel compared to if you're in a canoe, you go so fast.
Right. Yeah, they're going to catch the scent for a while, and then pretty soon it's like, they'll track the scent in the back of a pickup truck down the road. That's not a problem. But there's a little bit of a problem with getting into a vessel in water after a while. The scent can become overwhelmed by organic matter along the riverbanks. But bloodhounds are not easily fooled. There was a $1,500 reward for the arrest of the person responsible. And think about the date. I mean, 1910, $1,500 is a lot of money. Nobody ever claimed the reward. I mean, nobody ever turned anybody in. So there's this really wild thing that happened, though. This man named Reverend Kelly was arrested on August 4th, and he was under indictment by a South Dakota federal court for sending obscene matter through the mail. He admitted that he was in Villisca at the time of the murder, but claims he was a stranger in town and was preaching at the invitation of the resident minister. Because sometimes they'll do that. Like they'll ask someone to come and be the guest speaker for the day, guest minister. Shortly after the crime, he became like this amateur sleuth and took it upon himself to start investigating the murders. So he gets too intertwined and is like, dude, don't do that. Apparently, his sleuthing got him into hot water, and he was taken to the hospital for the criminally insane on charges of sending home letters to girls in Sioux City, Iowa, where he apparently made indecent proposals to them. God. How the letters and his sleuthing are connected, I'm not clear. I couldn't figure that out. I'm like, I don't think one has to do with the other. But the Reverend was, he was also a really small man, like in stature. He was small. And so they thought, they don't think he's capable of this kind of violence because of the violent act.
I mean, big things come in small packages.
Yeah, well, you're but they're like, yeah, but like 8 people, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
To subdue 8 people and take them out.
I mean, okay, so if like for context, guys, I'm like 5 foot, maybe 5'1". That's what my driver's license says. Maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. There's no way my physical endurance would run out.
You would.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
It would. Eventually, he was cleared of the crime and he started improving mentally under the care of the hospital. So that's good for the Reverend. I hope he didn't do any more indecent proposals through the mail. Oh, God. So, see, that kind of stuff's been going on forever.
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Moore's brother-in-law, Sam Moyer, was still being sought. It was thought he was residing in Nebraska, but he became somewhat nomadic, they thought, and no one knew where he was. Officers theorized that Mr. Moyer and a man named Van Gilder, who was the ex-husband of Mrs. Moore's sister, perpetrated the crime together. Moyer was apparently infuriated that the Moores asked to become foster parents of his 5 kids when his wife died. Like, I can't take care of my kids, but apparently he couldn't. And the Moores were really, really sweet. And so Sam Moyer's wife died 2 years before the murders. And he was struggling to provide for the kids, and he had a habit of abandoning them. So the Moores had actually gone to the court to see if they could become legal guardians of the kids. They were already relatives, so let's just become guardians of the kids because he was taking off on his 4 kids. There was another theory that the murderer had, and this is the one that I think probably is the most likely. The murderer hid in the family closet, one of the family closets, while the family was in town. They had done a church function that night, all 8 of them. And hidden as the family retired for the night and then perpetrated the crime. There was another theory that there was a murder of a family in Abilene, Texas, just the month before on the same day, a month before. And that now they are having a serial, but they didn't call him serial at the time. That now you had someone saying,
it'd be interesting to know if there was any more after that.
I know. So I'm going to start looking that up to see. Remember, there was the book written by Truman Capote, and it was on the killing of the one family and I want to say it was Kansas, and it skyrocketed into fame. It's a really well-known case. And then the 2 that perpetrated, there was 2 men that perpetrated that crime. They then apparently went to Florida and they took out another family when they fled. So I'm kind of like, but I can't. It's called In Cold Blood. In Cold Blood, I think, was the name of the book that Truman Capote wrote about the slaying of that family. And that launched him into fame as a writer. And it became the first real true crime novel out there, really. And so maybe you can Google that while I'm I think it was called In Cold Blood. So both murders took place on the same day of the month, but that seemed to be the only connection. But again, we didn't have forensics. There was no way to really, the last theory that I'm going to talk about here was there was a theory that was there an anesthetic or some kind of drug administered to all 8 of them to make them unconscious so that this act, because how else could you kill 8 people?
So I thought about that as you were talking about that. Like, was there something put in? Yeah.
They did. There was no evidence of there was a couple of anesthetics they could have used and chloroform. And when they did blood tests, there was no evidence of it, but I don't know how good testing was back then either. I don't know how sensitive the tests were. Now, shoot, you have gas chromatographs and you're not, like, everything can be tested,
Yeah.
No one was ever prosecuted for the murders. The historic house still stands at 508 East 2nd Street in Villisca, Iowa. And the owners restored the property back to its 1912 condition by removing any modern updates and all later additions. They put it back to exactly the way it was. And It operates as a museum and a tourist destination for paranormal fans because you can stay overnight. You can bring your paranormal team in, rent the place for the night, stay overnight.
We should go do that.
I know. And so with that, it's a place that I've always wanted to go to and investigate. It's a kind of a double-edged sword on those kind of places. There's just so much tragedy and dark energy that you can't come away from that not affected by it.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to, there's all of the family of the Moors that they're still in that town, in that area, in that county.
Oh, that's rough.
It's just a constant reminder. Now think about every time they drive by the house, there's the sign. The axe murder house. Yeah, my grandfather, or that wouldn't be grandfather, but that was my great.
It would have been like, something like that. Like, that's sad.
Yeah, it really does suck. So Sam Moyer apparently was never found, and no one is. Yep, I'm kind of thinking it was him. And maybe the other guy. Maybe they hid in the house and they took everybody out. Once you take the adults out, kids are easy to wrangle. So,
and that's true. Yeah, I hate with the kids. I know. I have a hard time with the kids.
I do too.
It's
I'd heard about this from the paranormal side for so long. Oh, it's the murder house. It's the murder house. And what it really bothers me, being a paranormal investigator like we do, is when people kind of glorify these horrifically bad spots. Oh, we're going to go. It's not something to celebrate, guys.
Because it's knowing that something horrific happened there.
Go there with, it should be fight. I understand investigating, especially if you go with mediums to see, maybe you can get a name. Who did this to you? Maybe you can get this information and then start cross-referencing. I mean, not that at this point, there's no justice, but still.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I agree with you. Like, don't glorify it because it was a tragedy. There's somebody's life out there that was destroyed by that act that then probably was a trickle effect for other generations. So, I mean, you can be a paranormal investigator and enjoy within yourself what you do, but you don't need to glorify somebody else's tragedy, and you don't need to make a buck off of somebody else's tragedy.
Yeah. I have so much to say on this topic, but this is
I know.
So we'll let it go. But anyway, thanks guys for hanging in there on this case. This was this one got to me. We still have one on the books that I have yet to bring forward because every time I read it, it makes me sick.
Oh. And we wonder why we're called Cringe de la Creme.
I know, it's that bad. And there's a lot of kids, and I just can't bother. Can't. I'm like, no, there's just so many more that we can talk about. I mean, this one did involve kids, but that one it targeted them, and I just can't make it through the case. I
don't understand the kid thing. I don't know
get it. If I can never bring it forward, to be honest with you.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
So anyway, guys, stick with the channel. We can keep bringing you content. And thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And we'll see you next week. Toodles.
Bye, guys.